The task is still there, exactly where you left it. It has been sitting there, untouched, for 4 days now. It sits at the top of the list, and every morning you look at it, and every morning you do something else. Yesterday you cleaned the desk, properly cleaned it for the first time in months. You answered every small email. You did research that was almost related. By evening, you had been genuinely busy all day. The task had not moved, and the small, sick weight of it had grown. And you know what you call yourself, quietly, when this happens. Lazy, undisciplined. And somewhere behind that, a worse suspicion that people who get things done are built from different material. So let me show you 3 things. Why lazy is the wrong diagnosis, provably wrong, and you already have the proof. What you are actually avoiding, because it was never the task. And why an old tradition put a god at exactly the spot where you keep getting stuck. Plus the one small move that spot has always required. Start with the evidence against your own verdict. A genuinely lazy person does not want to do the work, and they are at peace with that. They are on the sofa, untroubled. Is that you? You want this task done. You care about it, probably too much. You think about it constantly. You carry it into the evening. It is spoiling the very leisure you are supposedly choosing instead. You are not at rest. You are circling, and the circling is exhausting. That is the tell. Laziness does not ache. You ache. Whatever this is, it is not an unwillingness to make an effort. Look at yesterday, the desk, the emails, the almost research. That was effort, hours of it, spent with real energy on everything adjacent to the one thing. Nobody lazy works that hard at avoiding. Something else is going on, and it has a precise shape. Here is the shape. You are not avoiding the task. You are avoiding a feeling the task carries. Every dreaded task has a feeling stitched to it. The report carries the fear of being judged. The difficult conversation carries the dread of conflict. The creative work carries the terror of finding out you are not as good as you hope. The tax file carries pure, suffocating boredom, or the shame of what is in it. The gym carries the discomfort of being a beginner again. The task itself is just steps, and you have done harder steps 1,000 times. It is the feeling stapled to the steps that your system refuses. And avoidance works. That is the trap. Say it honestly. The moment you turn to the desk cleaning instead, the dread lifts instantly. Real relief, delivered in full, right now. Your system learned that trick early, and it has never forgotten. But watch what the relief costs. Each avoidance teaches you, one layer deeper, that the task is unbearable. That the feeling would have crushed you, or why else did we run? The task grows in the dark. Dread compounds like interest. By day 4, the report has become a monster, not because the report changed, but because you have run from it 4 times now, and everything you run from gets bigger behind you. Hold one image, because it is the whole mechanism. You are standing at the edge of a cold pool. Everyone has stood there. The dread of the cold, the hugging of the arms, the bargaining, the toe withdrawn. Some people stand there for 20 minutes. And here is the thing every swimmer knows. The dread lives at the edge. It is manufactured at the edge by the standing, by the imagining. The water itself, once you are in, is a shock for a few seconds, and then it is fine. And then, absurdly, it is lovely, and you cannot quite remember what the 20 minutes were about. The feeling you have been avoiding for 4 days works exactly like the cold. Anticipated, it is enormous, because imagination has no limits. Actually touched, it is a few seconds of unpleasantness that begins dissolving on contact. You have never once, in your entire life, found the water as bad as the edge promised. Check your history. The dreaded call, once dialed, was just a call. The report once opened was just typing. The monster only exists at the threshold, which means all that dread is not the price of the task. It is the price of standing at the edge, and you are paying it by the day. The tradition understood all of this and left 2 proofs behind. The first is a habit every Indian knows without thinking about it. Before any undertaking, a journey, a business, a book, an exam, the first prayer goes to Ganesh. Vignaharta, the remover of obstacles, worship before a single thing has gone wrong. And ask the obvious question, the one nobody asks. Why does the remover of obstacles get worshipped at the beginning, before anything has gone wrong? Because the tradition knew exactly where the obstacle lives. Not in the middle of the work, at the threshold. The blockage was always at the start, in the standing at the edge, and that is where they stationed the god. There is even a word for the beginning, held as its own category worth naming. Arambh, the beginning, the act of starting, taken seriously enough to be given a name of its own. And a word every Indian household still uses before a good start. Shubharambh, the auspicious beginning. An entire civilization ritualized the act of starting, because it saw clearly that starting is the whole battle. The second proof is a promise, and the Gita states it flatly. Neha bhikramana shosti. In this, no beginning is ever destroyed. No step on this path is ever wasted or lost. And then the line that speaks directly to your 4 days of dread. Swalpam pyasya dharmasya trayate mehato bhayat. Even a very little of it protects from great fear. Read that again as a person avoiding a task. Even a very little. The tradition is telling you that the fragment counts. That the small, ugly, incomplete beginning is indestructible. And that a little of the doing is the specific cure for a lot of the fear. Not, finish and you will be free. Begin, even barely, and the great fear loses its grip. It is the pool truth, spoken as scripture. The dread is at the edge. Even a toe in the water breaks its spell. So 3 moves, all aimed at the threshold, because that was always the only battlefield. First, name the feeling instead of the task. Stop saying, I need to do the report. Ask instead, what am I avoiding feeling? Judged? Bored? Not good enough? Overwhelmed by where to start? Name it in one word. This matters because you cannot negotiate with a task, but a named feeling shrinks on contact. And half the monster is just the dark it grew in. Second, shrink the commitment to a beginning, not the task, a beginning. 5 minutes. Open the file and write one ugly sentence. Dial the number, put on the shoes, and step outside. And give yourself genuine permission to stop after. This is the strange key. The permission to stop is what makes starting possible. Your system will agree to touch cold water for 5 minutes when it would never agree to swim laps. Then notice what almost always happens. The water is fine. You keep going. Not from discipline, but because the dread is gone, and the dread was the only thing that was ever in the way. Third, make your beginning a small ritual. The tradition put a god at the threshold. You can at least put a kettle there. The same tiny sequence every time. Sit down, tea beside you, one slow breath. Open the file. Same order every day. You are carving a groove at the exact spot where you always stall, your own auspicious beginning. And after a few weeks, the sequence itself carries you over the edge before the dread can convene its meeting. One honest line before the close. If there is a task or a whole path you have been avoiding not for days, but for years, every single time, that may not be procrastination. Sometimes chronic avoidance is information about the path itself. But that is the rare case. The daily case, the report, the call, the file, is just the edge of the pool, and the water was always fine. You were never lazy. Lazy does not ache, and you have been aching for days. You were avoiding a feeling, and the feeling was living where it always lives, at the threshold, growing in the dark of every postponement. The tradition put a god at that exact spot and left you a promise for it. No beginning is ever wasted. Even a very little protects from great fear. So stop trying to cross the whole pool from the edge. Get a toe in, one ugly sentence, 5 minutes. The dread was never in the water. It was in the standing.